By way of introduction, my name is Jess Clifton, and I'm the head of Brand and Marketing Advisory here at Media.Monks. I'm obviously thrilled to be here today for the Women in Brand Marketing Summit. And of course, I'm very excited to spend the next 30 minutes interviewing the very talented Daisy Ma, who's a creative director at Sam's Club. We're going to be talking about three specific areas that pertain to leadership today. First, really about creating a career in creative, especially as a woman. Second, how to sharpen your leadership skills as you elevate in your career. And lastly, a topic that I think has been near and dear to us, especially in the last couple of years, which is really about showing up authentically, how to really bridge the gap between the work you and the in real life you. So we will be taking questions probably for the last 10 minutes. So please drop them into the Q&A widget and we'll get to them after our initial discussion. And with that, I want to hand it over to Daisy to introduce herself, talk a little bit about why she's excited to be a woman leading creative for such a major brand, and some of her biggest takeaways on leadership from the last couple of years. So Daisy, over to you.
Hi guys. So I'm Daisy. I am the creative director at Sam's Club. And I actually started many years ago. I knew I wanted to be in the creative field at a very young age. I went to undergrad for design, worked a couple of years as a graphic designer, and then decided to go back to school for advertising. So since then, I've been in the agency world for a little bit. I freelanced for a little bit, and now I've been in-house for the past 10 plus years. Prior to Sam's Club, I was at Taylor Brand. I was part of the Men's Warehouse rebrand. I also launched their luxury brand called Joseph Abboud. And fast forward a little bit, at Sam's Club, I've been here for almost 5 years. I lead a very, very talented creative team in-house and also work very closely with a lot of different agencies. Myself and my team have a hand in basically everything that you will see for Sam's Club from a marketing perspective, from print, from digital, so emails, anything that you see online and in the paid social space as well. And if you go into Sam's Club, anything that you see from a marketing perspective, we have a hand in it. So it's been a lot of fun. We are an omni-channel team and we do a lot of fun work. And working for a major brand like Sam's Club, which is part of the Walmart family, is crazy. Obviously, you know, it's a giant company. There's a lot of layers. There's a lot of people that we answer to be honest. But what's very interesting with Sam's Club is even at the leadership, the C level, they are all very open to us sharing our ideas, hearing what we have to say, and value our opinions. And this is also a place where I found a lot of strong female peers and also a lot of strong female leaders. Our CEO is a woman, so I can learn a lot from them and look up to. So it's been great.
Yeah, it's what a blessing to work in an organization that's so just naturally diverse already and surrounded by so many great female leaders. That's always really special. And it definitely has a clear impact on culture. I wanted to ask you first, Daisy, you know, when we were just chatting originally, we were talking about kind of being a woman in business and a leader on the creative side, which is, you know, still kind of a rarity for a lot of women. We've made a lot of progress in the last several years, but still working towards bringing more women into creative leadership. But one of the things I wanted to hit on first is just really about being a woman in leadership. And I know that being a woman can come with certain gender biases. And I wanted to talk a little bit first about how you've navigated feedback around some of those gender biases.
Yeah, I guess in business, female or male, we've all been told you need to be professional. And this is very true. You do need to be very professional, and it sound applies for sure. But what professional means have so much kind of wrap around it, especially around gender bias. For example, like if you are fighting for something that you truly stand for in a meeting or in a group setting, some people might see you as emotional if you're a female, but for a guy, maybe they think, oh, he's just passionate. or if you're being very direct and being very logical, people might think, oh yeah, she feels a little cold. But for a guy is, oh yeah, he's very assertive. And if you're on a project, you are staying on task and making sure everyone is doing what they need to do, making sure you yourself is doing what you need to do. Maybe she's robotic, but if you were a guy, maybe he's very focused. And those are similar behavior, but described very differently.
Mhm.
And they're actually some of the feedback that I personally have gotten in my past. And it's definitely wasn't easy to hear. And there was definitely a moment of like, wait, so will I get the same feedback if I were a guy? I did think about it for a little bit, and I didn't try to dwell on it too much, and took a step back and really think about the feedback with a clear head. Um, you don't have to agree with everything that everyone say, and that is fine. But you do need to try to see what other people's perspective is, because those are your feedback, those are people's feeling. Like, are there anything that they are seeing that you're not seeing? Try to walk through what they are thinking, why they feel the way that they feel. And even when we are doing good, there's always a chance that we can do even better, right? And find things that you can improve on and see if there's any adjustment that you need to do for yourself, not just because of the feedback, not just because, oh, you want other people to see you in a certain way, but really truly think about it for yourself and see how you can be a better leader, be a better person, be a better team member in that environment. And I think the last thing, and it's really hard to do sometimes, but really think about it with a clear head. Like, don't jump to the conclusion and say, like, oh, yeah, they say that because I'm a woman. Maybe true for some, but a lot of times the misperception is because of lack of communication. So if it's a lack of communication, how do you bridge those gaps? How do you communicate better? How do you bring everyone together to have a better relationship so they won't continue to have those misperception of you?
That's great, Daisy. Those are very wise words. So I hope everyone was taking copious notes. And, having known you for a short amount of time, I think I can attest to you being a very passionate, focused, and assertive woman in leadership. So thank you. I know actually, I wanted to hit on just your team, because I found it fascinating that you have a really diverse team that has a lot of women involved in it. And I want to know if you could share just your background or experience and how you kind of really intentionally built that team with so much diversity.
Yeah, I have a very large team. I have about 30 plus people in my team, and I actually have a very female dominated team as well, and I'm proud to say that. And it actually happened very organically because there are just so much great female talent out there. We just have to, make sure to bring them in. And that said, though, I do want to have a good balance and to be fair with everyone on my team. I do intentionally to make sure that everyone has equal opportunity, whether it is working on high profile project or collaborating with different team members and different cross-functional partners. And the most important things is they all have equal opportunity to have face time with the leadership team. Because I think while my team is very diverse, and like I said earlier, we do have a very strong female leadership team, in general, it's still not the norm. So for us to kind of bring them forward and give them the opportunity to have those face time is very important.
That's great. That's great. So, what advice could you share for young female creatives coming into the agency or brand world who potentially walk into an environment where they don't see the same mix that you have on your team? Not a lot of female leaders, just in the teams that they're even interviewing with.
Yeah, well, companies now are more diverse. So hopefully your interview panel is reflecting that as well. So it's not just a boys club that you're walking into for an interview, but excuse me. Um, but regardless of what it is, right, you are going in for an interview. So know that you are interviewing for a job that you're qualified for, regardless of your gender, whether you're a guy, you're a girl, whatever it may be. Show what you know, show what you can do and be yourself. I think that is the most important thing from an interview perspective. And also walk in knowing what you're worth. Advocate for yourself and ask for things that you know you deserve and what you have worked very, very hard for. And it's not just the money in itself. Money is important, don't get me wrong. And there is still a big gap there. But also ask for the opportunity that you want as well, especially once you get the job. It's very often, and it seems like women tend to not speak up as much when they do want that promotion or they do want that opportunity. They want that project to, be theirs and like really show what they got. So speak up and kind of ask for those opportunity because it doesn't always get handed to you. You need to go reach out and go reach for it.
That's great. That's great. All right. So final question on just being a woman in creative. Um, Make the case for why being a woman in creative gives you a unique advantage.
I think not only creative, but in marketing in general, because women influence most of the consumer spending and the social sharing way more so than men do. And so naturally being a woman, we know how to connect and represent them more accurately, and we can get that connection more organically. And we also tend to be a better listener, right? Not just hearing things, but really listening, learning and understanding, hearing what our consumer wants, and we can know how to market to them better. So being a female and just being that, having that connection with majority, the heaviest hitter in our target audience, that's very important. And it definitely gives us an advantage.
I completely agree. Great spin on that. Okay, so let's pivot. So we talked a lot about how leaders show up and support their teams. And so I wanted to kind of move into sharpening leadership skills a little bit because, I think when we had a conversation, we talked a little bit that most leaders come to the table with a set of tools, that they've learned along the way. And maybe they don't always get it right, but there's definitely tools that you understand how to make an impact, how to influence teams from the front and back. And I wanted to talk about those tools. But before we jumped into that, I wanted you to first share maybe the best and the hardest lesson you've learned about leadership in your career journey so far.
Mm, the best and the hardest lesson, I think it will have to be knowing that getting the job done isn't actually done and is not enough. Yeah, we all get tasks and it's like, oh, this is a project. You have to, this is the objective. This is what you need to do. That can be perfect, but being a leader is also about building those relationships while you're in a project, in a meeting with the different people that you work with. How do you build those relationships to get a better understanding, not just from a business side, but also person to person, how each other work? Because that helps you build mutual trust and mutual respect. And that helps not just yourself, but also help your team to get the work a little smoother, a little easier. And you can jump over those hurdles, those difficulty much easier when you have a better relationship with everyone that you work with. And another thing that I think is also very hard and is very necessary is being transparent and being somewhat vulnerable to the people, your team, the people that you're always interacting with. Um, there's always time where a hard conversation is needed. And it's not fun for anybody, the person who's receiving it, the person who's giving it, but a lot of times those are the most important conversation you have to have. Because without having those conversations, being open to, hey, what is actually happening? What is the elephant in the room? You can resolve anything without those conversations. And it puts everyone in that vulnerable space, right? When you are trying to squash things and like really point out like, hey, this is not working. This is why, this is how I feel. It's not easy. And being transparent with good news and bad news is also very important. Great news is fun to share, bad news so much harder. But it's, especially with your own team, it's really important to me to share those bad news too, and obviously put it in the most positive way as possible, but also being truthful, because without those, your team won't know where your head is at or where the situation is. Like, they can't add value, they can't help you. You can help them to kind of move forward either without letting them know what is going on. So those are the two things that I think is the best and also the hardest thing to do.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, those hard conversations are rough, but it really does, it creates a lot of growth for on both sides, I think. So it's a great build here. Um, okay, so what are your top 3 tips for successful leaders to understand, with some context on why they're important?
I think one very important thing is tailoring your communication style. Everyone have their own style, but as a leader, I think it's very important to understand others people's style even more so, because as a leader, you want to make sure that, hey, what you're saying and what feedback you're giving, it's coming across easily, excuse me, and is easily digestible, and they will be receptive of it, right? So understanding, some people are more, hey, I want it straightforward, you can be brutally honest and I can take it and that's how I want it, then that's what you do. And some people may need a little more TLC and that's what you do. The feedback itself doesn't change, it's the style of communicating it. Tailoring it to them can make it way more, I guess, easier to digest, and it's easier for them to understand what you're trying to do and be more receptive to your feedback. I think another one is definitely be there to guide, but also allow them room to fail. We're all human. We can't do everything perfectly. And it's okay. It's showing them that it's okay to try new things. And even if you don't succeed, I'm there to support you. And it's okay to continue to try new things, because without that, we will just be doing the same thing over and over again. There's no innovation. So I think that's also very important. And the last thing, and I try to do this whenever I can, is giving credit when credit's due. That not only to elevate my team in front of the leadership, right, but also to help them build their confidence when they know, like, hey, I'm doing great in this area, even X, Y, and Z. The CMO is giving us kudos and they know my name now. They know I can do this. That really helped the team to build that confidence that they need so they can continue to do those great things.
That's great. I want to actually just build on one of the questions I asked you about tailoring communication style, because it seems that we're, especially right now, we're in this very interesting paradigm between, showing up authentically and consistently and, thinking about what's best for the team and then tailoring your style to those individuals. And with a team of 30 plus people at Sam's Club, I'm just curious how you've gone about creating kind of a process and persona for how you tailor your communication style. How do you get to know the teams and understand what motivates them and how they best receive feedback?
Yeah, so I obviously all 30 plus people do not report to me directly. So I do meet with my direct direct report every week, to really understand them and build that relationship, right? To understand them and their direct reports through them a little bit more, looking at that work and really asking a lot of questions like, hey, what's that thought process from a work perspective? Anyways, it's like, okay, what are they thinking? What are they doing? Seeing the different things that they have done to kind of talk it through and get to know them a little better. And even though I don't meet with the rest of my team on a weekly basis, I do make a point to chat with them and have a touch base with them every so often and do a jump level touch base to get to know them as a person. And those usually, in addition to like chatting about, hey, how you doing or what your work is, really try to know like at least some human truth about them. Like, do you have a baby? Do you have a dog? And just have those real connection and not just everything is all work and no personal personas or no sharing any outside of work interest at all.
That's great. Actually, that slides us right into our next topic, which we wanted to hit on, which is about showing up authentically. And before we jump into that, I just wanted to kind of give the audience a quick reset that we will be taking questions if you have any. So please drop them into the Q&A widget. Otherwise, Daisy and I will keep going because she has so much brilliance to share. Okay, so let's talk about showing up authentically and as your whole self in the work environment. So obviously in this new era of really encouraging people to show up authentically, like really living your brand, speaking your mind, having a seat at the table, getting the respect you deserve, so on and so forth. I'd love for you to talk to the audience about like what all of this means to you. And if you could break it down, maybe the first piece would be, what does it mean to you to show up authentically?
Showing up authentically, I think, is like showing and sharing who you are and being comfortable with it. And to me, it also means letting go with self-doubt and letting go of the fear of judgment, right? And it's not easy, it's really hard. And I actually struggle with that in my earlier careers. English is my second language. So when I was younger, I always worry about like, do I sound silly? Am I using the right words? Am I starting smart enough? And once I kind of got over that hurdle, then I start thinking about like, are my ideas good? Do I have it? Do I got it? And am I speaking too much? Am I speaking too little? Am I adding value to the meeting? So I was in my head so much. And when you're in your head so much and just worry about how everyone thinks and how everyone is looking at you, you can't really show up authentically. It's really hard because you're just so worried about everything else but being yourself. So it hinders you not only like to show up in any capacity, you can't even really participate in the meeting anymore because you're just not paying attention other than yourself. So really try to let go of that. And I know it takes a lot of work and it probably will take some experience as well. But know that people are there to share ideas. It's okay. And you don't have to try to be someone that you think they want you to be or think, oh, this is how I need to behave, or this is how I should represent myself. That is not who you are. Because how do you know that's how other people think you should be? Or if you're faking it, at some point, people will see through that. And you can't sustain it for a long time either. And most importantly, if you're faking it so much and you're just so worried about that, you're not happy in any meeting or in anything you do. So I think be brave, show up authentically, because that's how we connect with people. And this is how we earn trust. And with those, I think that's how our communication becomes more powerful.
That's awesome. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
So as you've kind of gone on this journey to get out of your own head, kick the imposter syndrome to the curb, how have you really kind of, or what strategies, I guess, would you suggest for others as they struggle in this area?
Yeah, for myself, I really kind of take a good look and try to understand what the inner struggle is, right? Yes, it's the nerves, is like, speaking in front of a lot of people, but what is that one thing or multiple things that you're really worried about, and why are you so worried about it? And really kind of think about it, those particular things, and try to find solution for those, because without really knowing and just keeping thinking like, oh yeah, it's nerve-wracking and like I don't want to speak in front of people, I'm just shy, that doesn't help you. Like you really have to dig deep and see like, what is the reason, how can I do better? And I think another thing to show up authentically too is everyone have a professional side and a personal side, but to be authentic, maybe the line needs to blur a little. Not saying that you need to pull your heart out and share everything from your personal side of life, but where is the happy medium? What are some of the personal brands that you want to bring into your professional brand? And that kind of helps you show up more authentically.
That's wonderful advice. Thank you for sharing that. Okay, I'm going to ask you this last question, and then we have a question from our audience. But having a seat at the table, obviously, women in brand marketing who are senior in your capacity have a wonderful seat at the table, but maybe it always hasn't been that way. So why is it important, and why should kind of people right behind you and the next generation really be thinking about that?
Yeah, I think it's important, and because that's when we have our voices heard, right? And it's also important because you're at the table speaking for the people who are not at the table. Just like you said, not it's still not the norm. So when you do get the chance, really take advantage of it and really speak up. This is also when you can get people engaged into what you're saying, influence other people with and sharing your point of view, and it very important for you to bring value and bring your expertise to show others what we can do. And by showing up and kind of bringing what you can do to the table, it really helps you earn the respect that you deserve.
That's great. That's great. And then just very quickly, how do you encourage other people to kind of like embrace their seat, to your point, and share what that is on their mind, that they might be a little bit intimidated to socialize with the broader big meeting audience?
I think it's one most important thing is being confident in what you know and what you believe in. Because if you don't believe it, then no one else will. And you have to understand, not everyone is going to share the same opinion. People will have different point of view, and it's okay. It's not life or death. People will think differently, and that's a good thing actually, because when people disagree with you, keep an open mind and see what they have to say, what their thought process is, so you can learn from it, and you can still agree to disagree, but there's always nugget of thoughts that you may not have thought of because it's different from what you were thinking.
Awesome. Okay, perfect. So, Colin Yasukochi asks, Daisy, you've been in many male-dominated businesses, even worked at firms named or marketed to men, and you've achieved great success. How do you as a leader influence the C-suite, which may mostly be male, and inspire your team?
Yeah, so I think a lot of times when it's a male dominant C-suite team, um, nowadays, I think we are very fortunate that they are also becoming more open-minded and listen to what people have to say. I think it's walking in to make sure not only you are showing your work, but also speaking confidently. You don't want to minimize what you have to say by second guessing yourself. A lot of time people start a meeting or start a feedback or an idea with, I'm not sure if this is great. I'm not exactly sure if it will work, or I think you should do it this way instead. Don't minimize your expertise. Don't sell it. You're in there to sell your ideas. You're in there to share your expertise and show them that you know what you're talking about. So don't minimize your authority.
Love that. I love that. Okay, so I want to just ask you quickly, just pivoting back to our guide, and if anybody else has questions, please type them in. Um, you talked a lot about the way you approach meetings with your team to just make sure that they can have a voice in the room. And I think there were kind of 3 points that you shared that you practice very methodically. And I thought it would be great for you to share that with this audience.
Yeah, so what I found out when Jess and I were talking the other day is when I have a bigger meeting with my team with 30 plus people, everyone is very, very quiet if I were the first one who start talking or giving ideas or giving feedback. So I tried it a couple of times. So um, the third time I took a step back and I was like, I'm not going to talk. I'm not going to talk first at the very least, right? To see what how everyone will react and what they will do and what they will say. And I found that when I'm not the first person who share those thoughts and ideas, the team is more open to sharing their ideas, giving feedback to their peers. It becomes more of a conversation, because I think when a leader in the meeting start speaking first, it kind of changed the mood a little bit. Every team member become a little more timid into sharing what they have to think, or, oh, I don't know if she will feel the same way, or I don't know if he would think this is smart or not. So by doing that, I think it helps the team to be more comfortable to speaking up in bigger meetings. And as after they share all of their ideas, I try to come in and give feedback. Obviously, that's still part of my job. So I will show them I also have shared similar opinion and add on to what they have talked about, add on to the ideas that they have to help them grow or push it even further. And when there are things that I don't understand or I don't understand their thought process, I keep an open mind, ask them questions, have them walk us through a little bit more, really make it into more of a casual conversation, sharing ideas with everyone, regardless of your level within the team, and just be there and enjoy each other's company and telling people what you can do.
That's great. That's fabulous. Okay, Daisy. Well, we are home stretch at this point. You've shared so much brilliance about just being a leader and creative, about showing up authentically, sharing leadership skills, showing up in meetings. It's been a fantastic 36 minutes. So I don't think we have any additional questions. So I do want to offer you the floor to just give us kind of some closing commentary. And my kind of best prompt for you would be, what's the best piece of advice you were ever given, and how do you practice it every single day?
Um, I don't know if it's much of an advice, more of it was an advice to me, but now is more of a reminder for myself. I used to get very nervous in meetings, just like what we were talking about earlier. And it was very hard for me to like really speak up and own my voice and, you know, show people what I got. But one of my previous manager had told me, like, whether it's in a meeting or if you're doing a presentation or you're speaking with the leadership team, there's always going to be more people who are rooting for you and want you to succeed than people who are on the other side of things. So be confident, like stand up, it's okay. And I've learned that even if people don't agree with you, and even though people have different opinions than you, it's not a big deal. Um, in what I do, anyways, in creative, working, it's important work, don't get me wrong. And I really enjoy it. But at the end of the day, we're not saving babies. So if they don't share the same opinion, they don't share their same ideas, learn from it. And it's okay, move on. it's okay to let go of your fear and let go of sometimes like ideas. Just put it in your back pocket, like bring it back up when it's appropriate again. Um, just be don't be in your head so much, and just be yourself.